the year before, I think in 2016, if I remember right. But Nakamura is number 2 in the world in the Blitz rating, and when I'm saying this, I kind of almost regret it a little bit, because the position isn't that interesting at the moment. But I'm sure it soon will be. I hope it will be. It was a fair guess that it could be the most interesting game, but to me it didn't end up that interesting so far. Now I wonder if Karjakin wants to take on d5 or not. A crucial decision, because if it doesn't, he lets white play e5. The safest is just to take on e4, but a bit boring. He invites for interesting play. Nakamura can play e5, but that would open the long diagonal from the bishop on h7. That's what black plays on in these positions. a5 automatically has to be answered with a3 to answer a4 with b4. And the other way too, if white plays a3, black would automatically play a5 to prevent b4. And I think this is standard procedure. Karjakin is waiting for white to play the pawn to e5, opening up the diagonal for his bishop on h7. And Nakamura is not playing it, he's postponing it. Will he put a knight on e5 instead? Maybe run with the pawn with the f pawn. I think it's quite critical actually to keep the bishop on h7. That's what he's doing. This position is all about the bishop on h7. Is it good or is it bad? And are there tricks here? Bishop g4, queen g4, knight g4. Another kind of, well, every time there is a chance to trade a piece, there is kind of a critical position, because a piece trade changes the character of the position so dramatically. He plays knight g4, and that makes the position suddenly it comes to life, because now he might take on h6, not right away, but very soon. I think he will run with h pawn to h4, and f4 is also in the air. And what is black going to do with that knight on g4? It's not so easy to chase it away. He cannot really play h5, and I think it's just kind of it's time to trade pieces, not to be mated. I think is the best Karjakin can do here. Play knight c5. He needs to get a. I was just going to say he needs to get a bishop back to f8, but I'm not sure about that. But he needs to trade pieces. Is f5 possible here? Probably not, but at least I would spend some time considering it. It is a piece sacrifice going on. It looks extremely dangerous, but is f5 possible? Why not? He's thinking. He played f5. It's become interesting and it's become critical. Was it just a pawn? No, it was hanging c6. Lots of pawns. Oh no, this is really bad for. Now comes also bishop d5, I think, unless there is bishop d5 next, and white will end up materially up, a lot of material up maybe, because the pawn on g4 will also fall soon. Was that it? Is it over already? Oh no. Fighting is fighting. Okay. Still, let me think. Black has 2 pieces for rook and 2 pawns, which is interesting. Perhaps actually enough. It's still about if that bishop on h7 is good or bad. And it easily becomes good if Nakamura starts moving the pawns. So but if he can't move the pawns, then he might actually just hang on. It seems like it's actually a balance. Maybe it's not even worse for black. I wonder if they saw all this in that little time, because the position changed so dramatically in just a few moves. And now it's become kind of a slow endgame. I think it's very good for white to trade a pawn, a rook. Oh, rook e5, clever. Is the pawn hanging, falling actually? Because after knight d6 he can take on a5, I think. I would have taken on a5 and rook a8 and then something. He took on a5. King e6 cannot be played because then he takes on d6. Oh, this is just Karyakin has just lost the pawn. I think it was the rook e5 trick there. And this now it's simply, I think it's just material, winning materially. Rook b6, and that is it, I think. Now we can do anything. Can even go with the queen. Here comes the king. And there are two pawns on c2 and d3 that hasn't started moving yet. c4 may come. Okay, this is just over, which means that Karyakin, I think, oh no, Nakamura will have a fantastic start if he wins this. That's it. That was it. That means that Karyakin, he also had a good start before this. They were both leading with 1.5 points out of 2. But now Nakamura takes the lead with 2.5 points. Are there anything interesting going on in any other game? Varsela Grau is the most interesting. Someone screams out here. Seems like Anand is just winning. He wins the queen. That Anand beat Varsela Grau. Very impressive indeed. And he's the oldest player. He's 40 years old, almost as old as me. And his brain is still as sharp and quick as ever, which is not the case with me, I must say. But compared to long chess, I also play much better when I don't have to think, to put it that way. Then it comes to intuition and so on. And the main challenge by being old is that you get tired, and in Blitz you don't really get so tired. But that was impressive. Anand is with 2 out of 3 now. Can we have a look at another game? Magnus beat Wesley So this time, as he did so many times in the, what was it again? It was on chess.com, I think, just before Christmas, where Magnus totally crushed both first Wesley So and then Ding Liren on some Blitz match on chess.com, I think. Which is very good for Magnus, because the more he beats these young guys, the better it is to get a grip on them before they become real world champion contenders. What else? Mamedyarov lost today. He can also blame on the tooth, of course. That's a chance. And good for Aronyan. He needed to win a point. This is first point for Aronyan. He started horribly, but now he's at least on the score sheet with 1 point. And from this position here, it seems like he's had a quite easy game. Looks horrible for black. Caruana beating Liren. By looking at the final position, it seems like a great game. But I would love to look at these games more properly later. It's not that obvious that this final position is lost, actually. Is it lost? Did he lose some time or something? Just looking at the position Caruana Dinglier and then trying to understand what's happening here after knight f1. I think I have to look at another computer with a. He lost on time. Okay, Caruana lost on time, which is easily done, of course. With only 3 minutes and 2 seconds on the board, but it's still a bit strange. You shouldn't lose on time when you're number 2 in the world. But Magnus lost some time in the famous game here, of course, in Norwich chess some years ago, when he forgot that he didn't get increment after move 60. That was in the proper tournament. Okay, so Caruana lost on time, which was nice for Dinglier because he had only half a point before. It was Dinglier who lost on time, sorry. Dinglier lost on time. Is he still jet lagged then? That's what comes to my mind. So Dinglier has only half a point. That's a bit bad actually, because if you're having a very hard time in the Blitz, you kind of tend to bring it on with you into the ordinary tournament. Actually, I managed to do something about that when I played in this tournament some years ago. I played in 2014 and had a horrible Blitz tournament. I was so nervous and was sure I was thrown to the wolves and played so horrible and lost almost every game, didn't sleep at night and so on. But when it came to the ordinary tournament, I managed to do quite okay. But it enhances it makes the challenge bigger. And for Dinglier, he's number 4 in the world, but it is his first time here in Stavanger. This is the first time. This is the strongest tournament he's ever taken part in, as he said on the press conference. So a little bit of confidence for him would be good, I think. But he doesn't seem to get that so far. So after 3 rounds, Nakamura is leading with 2.5 points. Magnus managed to win and is second together with Anand with 2 points. And that's maybe, if you're thinking Magnus, it's a bit typical. He tends to play quite many actually boring games, but when the machinery starts going, it really starts going. So perhaps it started going now, and he's of course able to win lots of games. He can win the rest if so be. I'm a little bit curious. We have about five minutes till the next round starts. It starts every 20 minutes. I think I'll just go through Magnus' game very quickly because I'm curious. Nothing special in the opening as usual. Magnus just wants a game. It's got even the most boring positions end up with something when Magnus play is on one of the sides. Because here again we have a position with the question is this bishop on h5 good or bad? It may easily be horribly bad because it's not doing anything, even though it has a fantastic diagonal, a long diagonal, but it's not doing anything there. So I guess that's what happened, that this bishop here ended up much stronger than this one. Let me see. Square on d3, d6 of course is essential. Okay, Magnus is coming fast. The bishop certainly wasn't bad. It was very good. A little curious about this, but okay, this pawn decides the matter. Can't do anything. If that works, typically it does. This is quite typical Magnus, of course, but not clear. He could take back, and then the rook would go over to h6 or f6 or h6. I'm not sure. But is the pawn ending just lost? It seems so. If the pawn ending is lost, well, f6 was a blunder, of course, but then it's nothing to do about getting either a pawn ending or a bad rook ending. Okay, short break before next round.